Audio Renaissance presents The Heir by Barbara Taylor Bradford. Read for you by John Lee.
It was a compulsion, the way he came down to this stretch of beach whenever he returned to Ravenscar. A compulsion, indeed, but also an overwhelming need to recapture, in his mind's eye, their faces. Their faces not yet cold and waxen in death, but still warm. Neville, his mentor, his partner in so many schemes and adventures. Johnny, his beloved companion of their youth. He had loved them well and true, these Watkins brothers, these cousins of his who had been his allies. At least until a mixture of hurt feelings, overweening ambition, flaring emotions and dangerous elements had intervened and pried them apart. They had become sworn enemies, much to Edward's chagrin, a pain that had never ceased to trouble him. And now Johnny and Neville were dead. How unexpected, how sudden and abrupt it had been. Their motor car had shot off the dangerous winding cliff road, had plunged 600 feet, rolling down the face of the cliffs, crashing onto the rocks below. Neville and Johnny had been thrown out of the car onto the shingle, and they had died instantly. It had been a terrible and unnecessary accident, one which Edward knew had been caused by Neville's festering anger, frustration, and bad temper. His cousin had been furious with him, and he had been driving far too fast, spurred on by raging emotions he could not always control. After a few minutes Edward opened his eyes and placed his hand on his chest. He could not feel the medallion through the layers of heavy winter clothes, but it was there, laying against his skin, Johnny's medallion. 14 years ago, in 1904, Edward had presented a unique medallion of his own design to those men who had helped him in his fight to win back and take over the family business empire. The medallion was a badge of honor, in a sense, to mark their success. It was made of gold and bore the Deravenel family crest, an enameled white rose on one side, the sun in splendor on the other, with the Deravenel motto, "Fidelity unto eternity," embossed around the edge under the enameled white rose. It was his brother Richard who had discovered the medallion around Johnny's neck after the car crash, when he had opened his cousin's collar as he lay on the beach, the life seeping out of him. The night of the accident, Richard had brought Johnny's medallion to Edward, who had later removed his own identical medallion and fastened Johnny's around his neck, and he had worn it ever since, and would until the day he died. The following morning Edward had given his own medallion to Richard, as a token of his love and regard for his youngest brother. Richard had been thrilled to accept it, understanding how meaningful it was. The sound of a horse's hooves, thundering along the beach, interrupted Edward's melancholy reverie, and he turned his head, saw his youngest brother riding hell for leather down the beach. Raising a gloved hand, Edward waved, stepped over to Hercules, his white stallion, and with lithe agility he swung himself up into the saddle. Galloping forward he rode to meet his brother. As the two men drew closer and reined in their mounts, Edward knew at once that something was terribly wrong, even before his brother uttered a word. "What is it? What's happened?" he demanded, staring hard, his bright blue eyes sweeping over the younger man's face with intensity. Richard, his voice tight with concern, said, "It's young Edward. Something's wrong with him, Ned, and—" "Wrong? Do you mean he's ill?" Edward cut in peremptorily, instantly worried about his little son. Richard nodded. "Elizabeth thinks it's the influenza, and she sent me to fetch you. Mother has already telephoned Dr. Layton. She spoke to his housekeeper. Seemingly, he and his wife are house guests of the Dunbars. He's staying at the lodge for the weekend, and he's on his way already. He won't be long." As he finished speaking, Richard saw that his brother had gone extremely white. "My God, the Spanish flu," Edward muttered. "Come on!" He rode off down the beach, galloping at breakneck speed, heading for Ravenscar. Ravenscar stood high on the cliffs above the sea, which was glittering like polished steel in the brilliant light of mid-morning. Built in 1578 by Edward's ancestors to replace the ruined stronghold still perched on the promontory.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?